Boundaries are a good thing, right, David?
Yes, they are. We were continuing the Starbucks conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, we need boundaries. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, look, I don't even have to do anything. I don't thank you. You thank us. No, it's great to have you, and congratulations again on your daughter.
Thank you. Thank you. She's very happy.
She is married. We all saw the picture. She's a stunning bride. Thanks to Jessica and Katie. All right, that's it for us. Outnumbered. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. And here's Harris.
Fox News alert: the president's potential summit with North Korea may be back on track amid a flurry of diplomatic activity just now. Let's go outnumbered over time. I'm Harris Faulkner. President Trump has confirmed a top North Korean official is on his way to the United States for talks about his potential summit next month with Kim Jong-un. Here's new video of North Korea's former spy chief spotted at a Chinese airport. Take a look in the big wall. He's expected to land in New York City tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon, I should say, before meeting with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo later in the week. He would be the highest-ranking North Korean to visit the U.S. in nearly 2 decades. All this, as Japanese media now says, Kim's de facto chief of staff arrived in Singapore last night to meet with a U.S. advance team. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, credits the president's letter to Kim Jong-un, canceling the big sit-down for getting things going again. Watch.
This president, in that letter last week, I thought really got some kinetic energy going. Folks all of a sudden said, wow, this may actually not happen, and if we want it to happen, then we're going to start moving. And ever since then, practically, North Korea, South Korea, and the United States have been making very positive moves.
Chief White House correspondent John Roberts with the fresh details from the North Lawn. John?
Harris, good afternoon to you. Anybody who's ever haggled over the price of a car knows that you usually get the best price just as you're about to walk out the door, and that seems that's what President Trump did last week. And now North Korea coming back to the table. A much more optimistic tone in recent hours than we saw last week after the president sent that letter over to Kim Jong-un. The summit not back on yet, but a rather positive outlook from the press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, in a statement that was released in the 11th hour, or the 11 a.m. hour, saying, quote, since the president's May 24th letter to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the North Koreans have been engaging. The United States continues to actively prepare for President Trump's expected summit with leader Kim in Singapore. One of North Korea's top officials, as you pointed out, Kim Yong-chul, on his way to New York City. He's not only the head of North Korea's, the former head of North Korea's spy agency. He also co-led the delegation from North Korea to the Pyeongchang Olympics in South Korea earlier this year, and he is the guy who's in charge of relations between the North and the South. The president tweeting this morning, quote, we have put a great team together for our talks with North Korea. Meetings are currently taking place concerning summit and more. Kim Yong-chul, the vice chairman of North Korea, heading now to New York. Solid response to my letter. Thank you. The White House has sent teams to Singapore and South Korea. They left on Sunday to make plans for a summit. Listen to what Kellyanne Conway said about their task earlier today.
The president sent over 2 delegations, one for logistics and one for more diplomatic purposes, that are on the ground making the logistic preparations for June 12th. But as the president has said, it doesn't happen June 12th. It could happen thereafter. What he's been able to do in such a compressed short amount of time is nothing short of historic and remarkable.
You know, you get different dates depending on who you talk to at the White House. The president seems optimistic that June 12th will happen. I talked to a couple of other people who suggest that it might have to happen at a different date than June the 12th. Maybe.
It's interesting when you look at those dates, because they do all kind of come together, the 7th, the 12th. We'll see what happens. It may slide a little bit, but this seems to be moving forward. I want to get more clarification
Fingers
on that.
crossed that I
guess.
don't have to change my flight.
All right. Well, we do what we have to as journalists, right?
You got it.
Fast-breaking details now. We are joined by my first guest, Republican Senator James Risch, sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. So I was just talking about how we seem to be going forward in a certain direction. Talk to me about what needs to get done and what impresses you about what's being done at this point.
Well, you can't help but being impressed with what's going on. This thing's moving at lightning speed the way most diplomatic things move. I've always thought June 12th was aspirational and not necessarily doable. But the important thing is that the people are committed to it. And the other important thing is even though we've had some speed bumps and ups and downs, no one has backed away from the foundations that the parties laid out at the beginning, the objectives.
So it's interesting because you and I have talked in recent weeks, and you never really seem to get very flustered between the I'm going to show up, I'm not going to show up. It's on, it's off. You said it's part of the process, but what really got this going? What in that letter, and the wording of that letter, in your estimation, got North Korea thinking, okay?
Well, you know, I've talked to the president about this personally, and look, there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on through back channels and what have you. I don't think it's particularly productive to be analyzing these word by word, sentence by sentence. It's important, and I think everyone needs to give these two people who have strong personalities the space that they need to get together and see if they can't agree on objectives. Look, this can happen. Two things need to happen. Number one, the parties need to have
We've got a team from the White House who's going to Singapore, kind of an advanced team, and then you've got that DMZ delegation. What exactly are they doing?
Well, the DMZ delegation is made up of a number of people that are really drilled down on the details. Some of those people have been advisors or employees of the National Security Council through a number of administrations, both Republicans and Democrats. These people know this stuff backwards and forwards. They've been involved in the prior negotiations on this. So they're already starting to talk about details. I suspect when the two leaders get together, they're going to be talking about this more at a 30, 50,000 foot level. The people that are meeting at the DMZ today, I can tell you, are talking about details that are going to need to be hammered out over some period of time. Both parties want to make this happen and happen as quickly as possible.
All right, so the former top spy in North Korea, he led the spy agency, the top guy, reports he's killed a lot of people. He's coming to the United States, and I guess that's what spies do, right? So the former head for North Korea, what is your take on dealing with this person?
Well, first of all, he is very, very close to Kim Jong-un. So this is a person that Kim Jong-un trusts to go to the United States, to deliver messages, to pick up messages, to find out what the nuances are here. So I think first and foremost, it's a person that's close to Kim Jong-un. And look, it'd be like us sending a former head of the CIA that happened to be particularly close to the president. Obviously, our CIA does not work the same way that North Korea's does, but they're both intelligence gathering agencies, and with them, among other things.
Yeah, they tend to kill some of their own people. So, yeah, you've got that. It's Japan's role in all of this. I mean, you've got the Japanese leader coming to the White House this week, and we know that the president and Abe have been talking back and forth through this entire thing.
Yeah, really, the president's been talking with all of the with all of our allies in the region, South Korea, Japan, and others. And it's important that we all stay on the same page.
But Japan in particular.
That's how we got to the dance in the first place.
Senator, Japan in particular, what are we looking for them to do in this process?
Well, I don't know if we're looking for them to do anything. What we're looking for is an agreement that we're headed in the right direction as far as the kinds of things that happen in a give and take relationship that we're going to have with North Korea, and obviously we've got to be pulling the wagon together, and that is really, really important. And the same is true here. I've talked to the president, to the vice president, and the secretary of state. All have committed that they're going to do their very best to put this in a form that it can be submitted to the United States Senate as and they're all committed to do their very best to get it in a form that it can be voted on as a treaty.
Real quickly, if it doesn't happen.
Well, look, this was headed for a very, very bad place. I think it's fortunate that the other side recognized that the ending was not going to be a pretty ending, and I think that's what got us to where we are.
Senator Risch, I always enjoy talking with you. Thank you for being on the
Harris,
program.
nice to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Looks like things are progressing in a certain direction. Politics part of this at all for you on the left side of the aisle?
No, look, I think that for myself and for everybody, frankly, we should be focused on the substance. And I actually think that the ups and downs about whether or not the summit is going to happen and the president's letter last week is not where the focus should be. The focus should be on the substance of whether or not we can make progress with North Korea. Again, I disagree with this president and the way that he has handled the diplomacy with North Korea. I'm not sure I would have leapt immediately into a summit as he did in March, nor did I think he should have withdrawn the offer of a summit last week. But the point here now is that we have some diplomacy that's moving forward. That is where the focus should be. And that's where the president should keep the focus right now to see whether or not we can actually make some real progress with North Korea.
You know, it's interesting because your words are very sort of nonpartisan. I mean, and you're honest where you don't agree and you're, you know, positive about perhaps where this could go. Nancy Pelosi, House of Representatives, not the same way. And I'm wondering if you're concerned at all that people in your party might not get on board and be part of history if it is indeed made at a summit. Her words calling the letter that the president sent after the summit was called off a Valentine, causing a dictator to have a giggle fit. Your thoughts?
Look, I think that, again, everybody here, regardless of party, needs to be focused on whether or not the United States of America is making progress with North Korea. Now, look, I very much disagreed with the president's letter last week. I thought that this was the president just in a huff canceling the summit, not understanding how North Korea agreed. Well, I think it's a big question as to exactly what has transpired over the last number of days and whether or not this is President Moon or others who have made moves to do this. And I think, frankly, the president has shown his ability to be erratic, not just on North Korea, and go back and forth in the span of just a few days. And so, again, I think that on this issue, though, again, I think that regardless of party, the focus needs to be on whether or not there is progress on the real threats for North Korea.
I don't know if you could just hear Senator Risch from the Foreign Relations Committee. He put it this way: let strong personalities be themselves for Kim Jong-un and President Trump. And, you know, I added in, let everybody else do their job. So let's talk about the job that's being done right now. You've got two teams, one going to Singapore for the White House, one going to the DMZ. The senator described this delegation as very important to work out the details. What do you see happening that you think is progress and positive?
Well, look, I think that the very fact that we have this team right now in the DMZ having what we believe to be very substantive negotiations with the North Koreans is one of the best steps, signs, frankly, that I have seen so far about the seriousness of the Trump administration's intention to engage in real diplomacy with North Korea, led by Ambassador Sung Kim, who has been doing these issues for years and years. He is a first-rate diplomat, and he knows exactly what he's doing. And so the very fact that he is there and he is in charge or with this delegation doing these negotiations, to me, gives me some hope that whatever happens with the summit, whatever happens going forward, at least at this very moment, there is some very serious intent on the part of the Trump administration to see where diplomacy can go.
Michael, before I let you go, you know, you were a part of the State Department that would have focused so much energy and time and concentration on what's going on in North Korea. A potentially bad actor even going forward. We don't even know what's going to happen, but we know the history. We know the past there. Have you talked with any of your former cohorts under the Obama administration to see what they're thinking about where we are now?
Look, again, I think that I can speak for myself, obviously, only. But what I would say is that everybody, national security professionals and beyond, are interested, again, in seeing progress with North Korea. We know that this is a hard issue. This has been a hard issue for every single administration. And we need to be very realistic about expectations here. But the focus needs to be on seeing whether or not we can actually make some progress here. War, conflict is catastrophic and is the worst possible outcome. And we need to do everything that we can to avoid that.
All right, Michael Fuchs, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
This search continues for a Maryland National Guardsman who went missing after flash flooding tore through Ellicott City. The latest details on efforts to find him. And President Trump warning American voters that Democrats on the special counsel's team plan to meddle in the midterm elections. What would that look like? Is it a real concern? We'll talk about it. Stay close. On the rigged Russia witch hunt will be meddling with the midterm elections, especially now that Republicans, stay tough, parenthetically, are taking the lead in polls. There was no collusion except by Democrats, exclamation point. This after the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, called the probe rigged over the weekend, saying he no longer sees it as legitimate. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live for us in Washington. Catherine?
Well, thank you, Harrison. Good afternoon. As the president ramped up pressure on Twitter, the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees are preparing a new round of interviews with key FBI players in the Russia and Clinton investigations, reportedly including Bill Priestap, the espionage chief who had oversight of the email and Russia probes. These text messages between FBI agent Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page are drawing fresh scrutiny, indicating Priestap went to London in May 2016, 2 months before the Russia case opened. One Republican told Fox in a statement that the questioning will be Freedom Caucus wants more information on that alleged informant and whether their intelligence was gathered by the FBI and assimilated or assessed, if you will, long before the Russia case opened in July 2016.
When did it start? We do know that actually those confidential human sources were engaging prior to the official FBI investigation. So the question begs, at whose direction? You know, what were they collecting and who were they reporting to?
But another senior Senate Republican said they've looked at some of the evidence and they believe the FBI acted properly.
If there are people operating in this country trying to influence American politics on behalf of a foreign power, it is the FBI's job to investigate those people. What I have seen so far is an FBI effort to learn more about individuals with a history of bragging about links to Russia that pre-exist the campaign.
President's lawyer Rudy Giuliani, as you mentioned, wants the probe concluded by November because of the obvious or potential political impact. Harris.
Catherine, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Former Republican Utah Congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz is here. Jason, always great to see you. Why didn't Robert Mueller? Because there's so much focus on the staff that he has. The president saying 13 angry Democrats, plus people who worked 8 years for Obama. Why didn't Robert Mueller try to have a more politically neutral or equal staff?
It's a great point. It's something that Rod Rosenstein, who appointed the special counsel, he's highly conflicted. Mr. Mueller is conflicted, certainly with his relationship with Director Comey. And then to go out and hire 13 people with Democrat ties, there are hundreds of thousands of people in the pool of potential staff. But he had to go out and get all these Democratic donors. It really is mystifying. It undermines the credibility of the Mueller investigation and his ability to actually prosecute something if he were to ever do that.
I'll get to the president's word calling them angry in a moment and rigged the investigation, but I want to go here with just the facts. Yeah. Is there a watchdog or an agency or a committee or somebody who can oversee, because, you know, maybe some oversight, you would know about that, for the Robert Mueller investigation to look at who's staffing there, who's being staffed?
There is a great deal of hesitation to inject yourself into an existing probe like this, but that's where, again, the Inspector General is somebody that can get in there and look at it. Now, Horowitz, as the Inspector General for the Department of Justice, will be coming out with the Clinton email probe investigation. He started a second, and that'll come out anytime. Sure. The second investigation is into the FISA abuses, but the potential third one would be to look at how this was actually handled as well. It's usually done after the fact, not in real time. But there is no reason why Congress, Senator Grassley and Bob Goodlatte as the chairman of the Judiciary Committees, why they can't call up Bob Mueller as well as Rod Rosenstein and try to explain the conflicts of interest. I think that should happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of trying to drill down at, because I didn't know exactly which sections of government would do it, but there'd have to be somebody, because otherwise it would just be, you know, Robert Mueller on his own. And we know that there are checks and balances that are supposed to be built in any system. Let's talk about the angry Democrats that the president says. Those are his words, not mine. And this notion both from Rudy Giuliani, his top attorney, and the president that the system is rigged.
Well, listen, the problem is, sorry, I thought you were going to play some audio there.
No.
The problem is, you don't have Senator Sessions, who's now the Attorney General, is absolutely nowhere. I mean, you need to have an active Attorney General that's helping to oversee that. That's not happening. I think he's there in name only, but he's recused himself of the very systemic thing and problem that he has to address. And so that is a huge problem. But again, just the balance of who is in this Mueller team creates this appearance of impropriety and imbalance. And here you are going into the 2018 election, and you don't want to make the same mistakes that the FBI made going into the 2016 presidential election.
Is this a cloud? Is this a distraction? Is this something that voters would be turning their heads and looking toward as they head into the voting booths? I mean, that's the concern among Republicans in the White House.
Well, look, I think America is tiring of this. I mean, you've had Adam Schiff and the others of dollars that the Clinton campaign and the DCCC, the Democratic campaign, sent overseas to try to, you know, fund this dossier. Where is the actual evidence? But proximity to the 2018 election, it sucks a lot of energy and oxygen out of the room. I actually think it's hurting Democrats right now. I don't think it's having much of an effect on the Republicans.
Real quickly before I let you go, the notion that this is not a legitimate investigation by Rudy Giuliani. And you've answered my questions about who could be, because all you hear is how fair Robert Mueller is in terms of how he looks at evidence and how people on both sides of the political aisle want him to finish his investigation. Yet he stacked it this way, and it's so politically explosive with the resumes and the money that was given to the Democratic Party by some of these members. It's just an interesting question. Why did he do that? Jason Chaffetz, thank you very much.
Thanks, Harris.
Well, the immigration battle is heating up. President Trump is going after liberals. People on the left for posting a picture of young illegals being kept in cages. Here's the deal. The picture was actually taken during the Obama administration in 2014. Wait until you hear what he has to say next. The Trump administration is pushing back on reports the United States lost track of nearly 1,500 immigrant children in their custody last year. Health and Human Services saying, quote, these children are not lost. Their sponsors, who are usually parents or family members, simply did not respond or could not be reached when this voluntary call was made. While there are many possible reasons for this, in many cases sponsors cannot be reached because they themselves are illegal aliens and do not want to be reached by federal authorities, end quote. Meanwhile, President Trump is slamming people on the left who mistakenly posted a photograph of young illegals inside cages. The picture was actually taken during the Obama administration in 2014. Here's what the president tweeted. That fact exact. Democrats mistakenly tweet 2014 pictures from Obama's term showing children from the border in steel cages. They thought it was recent pictures in order to make us look bad, but backfires. Dems must agree to wall and new border protection for good of country, bipartisan bill, end quote. I'm joined now by Republican Congressman from California, Jeff Denham. How can the facts be looked upon so differently here? What happened with those 1,500 children?
Well, it certainly is a very political issue with plenty of reason for both sides to raise the political flames of a very critical issue. But specifically on the unaccompanied minors, these are minors that have come across our southern border. They do go to similar detention camps like the picture that's been shown several times. but ultimately they end up with family or friends or relatives back in a community. And as you said, oftentimes it's with other illegal immigrants that do not want to answer a phone or do not want to report, because usually these dates are 1 to 2 years before they have a trial date or before there's actual due process.
You know, Congressman Denham, I want to go back to the picture for just a second, because sometimes people tune in and out. And I want to make it very clear that that picture was posted and has since been deleted by some people who call themselves journalists, saying that they didn't check the date and that it was 2014 instead of 2018. But the significance was, if we go back a couple of years, 3, 4 years, this was a time when our borders were so porous, and they still are, but the flow was so heavy of these children. It was like 90,000 at one point, unaccompanied minors.
Yeah, they were. I've toured these facilities. They were way overcrowded. But you can see the whole point of releasing this picture is to blame the Trump administration, when this is actually a broken immigration system that was just as broken, if not worse, under the previous administration. It's why we need to have a solution today.
You know, and looking at the solution, Democrats want to say, well, Republicans aren't as good-hearted about the issue. And sometimes you on the right side of the aisle get painted as a group that wouldn't want to come to the table on some of the issues. Yet this president, this Republican president, has probably talked about this issue more than any in recent history.
Yeah, he has, and the president has talked about it not only from a permanent fix for Dreamers, very compassionately, but also very strongly about a border wall. I mean, I think we have to do both, as well as fix a number of these other issues that are part of our broken immigration system as well. But, you know, I'm encouraged that he talked about a bipartisan bill. I think ultimately something that comes out of the House in the next few weeks will be very, very bipartisan, and will certainly address those two issues, giving the president exactly what he's asking for on border security, but also having a real permanent fix with a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers.
Republicans control the House. Republicans control the Senate, and even when there's a little bit of a tie, the vice president can step in if somebody can't come vote. Why can't you guys get this done?
Well, part of the challenge with immigration is there is no timeline. You know, unlike other bills, the FAA bill, the Farm Bill, or appropriations bills, everything expires and you've got a timeline that forces you to bring up a vote. There hasn't been one until this president gave us the March 5th deadline, and as you've seen, Congress blew past that. So we are using something that is part of a parliamentary rule to actually force a debate. And I think that's a good thing, to force a timeline in the House of Representatives so we can get a bipartisan solution, push it over to the Senate, and actually get it signed into law.
What do you think about first addressing blocking the flow of people into this country? You know, you bring up the word wall or wall system, which is what the president calls it, because in some places you can't put a wall, so you're going to fortify with more people from the Border Patrol. You're going to staff up, if you will. But when you bring up that word, what is the reaction on the Hill? Because, again, Republicans control both chambers right now.
Yeah, again, when you talk about a wall, that is usually something that the left is trying to use to just attack this president. Even though in 2013, the Gang of Eight bill that came out of the Senate had $42 billion for border security and for a wall. So, you know, this is something we've just got to get done. And I think both parties can come together and do this, although the critics would say, build the wall first, and then we'll talk about all the other aspects of immigration. If it were that easy, we'd be doing it. The challenge is finding something that, you know, we're pairing two different issues together, border security with a permanent fix for Dreamers, that I think that we can not only do at the same time, but we can do it on a bipartisan level.
Yeah, maybe you scream a little bit of hypocrisy when you look at the mistakenly tweeted photo when people didn't know from just Googling that it was 4 years old. I'll give you last word.
Well, you know, it's difficult on a political year coming up in November to get something done. I think that this would have been better to handle last year or last decade, but I think we've got a real opportunity to come together in the coming weeks, doing something bipartisan, and just take this issue off the table.
Well, look, you're in a state of California where it is a constant conversation, I would imagine. I appreciate your time, Congressman Denham. Thank you very much.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Well, the body of a missing National Guardsman has been found. Flash flooding ripped through Ellicott City, Maryland. We have a live report, breaking news, next. breaking news. The body of a National Guardsman found after he went missing during a flash flood in Maryland. Boy, that flooding hit them hard there, and they were looking for him.
Pest Doctors is taking care of me.
Call A1 Able Pest Doctors today.
Marino, we have breaking news on the search for the National Guardsman missing since that devastating flood in Maryland. Plus, our own Brett Baer will weigh in on the latest movements on the potential summit with North Korea, and why is China aggressively developing its next generation of nuclear weapons. We'll discuss all that and much more. Breaking news left and right on the Daily Briefing.
Fox News Alert now. Our Fox top story. Diplomacy appears to be accelerating ahead of a potential summit with President Trump and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. The president has confirmed a top North Korean official is on his way to the United States for talks about the meeting. We're told that the plane will arrive tomorrow. And a Japanese broadcaster says Kim's de facto chief of staff arrived in Singapore last night to meet with a U.S. advance team there. Bringing in the power panel, back from Outnumbered senior director of research at Bustle.com and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. And Republican strategist Noelle Nickpour is here as well. Noelle, I want to start with you.
Sure.
There are things that are, and I have a whole list of things that are coming together and people who are pulling into place. You've got the delegation at the DMZ. Senator Risch talked about that earlier this hour. These are hard, even the representative from the Obama administration said, these are hard tactical things that are happening. You can check the list.
That's right. The meeting's going to happen. I feel very certain it's going to happen because everything is adding up to make it to where it's going to happen. And look, this is to North Korea's advantage. North Korea is basically economic. They're broke. You know, they need the infiltration of expertise on capitalism. They need the great minds from the United States that can help revitalize their broken economy. They need us actually more than we need them. And let's face it, the whole reason that we're even talking about North Korea is because of the nukes, not because there's some economic superpower here.
Well, we're actually talking about it because of China. Something must have shifted here. China has been propping up North Korea for
Trump
as long
ignited it. Trump ignited
it. Listen, I've been giving President Trump more credit than, frankly, I'm even comfortable with the past few weeks about this. But
okay, we've got a breaking with breaking news, and this is something that we knew was on the horizon. Roseanne Barr apologized for very racist type of conversation that she was having on her Twitter account. ABC is now reporting that they have canceled her show. One of her tweets, can we pop one of her tweets up? She said she should have known better than to, here we go. I apologize to Valerie Jarrett and to all Americans. And what she's talking about here is a racist comment that she said what would happen if one person got together with another person and the baby would be like Valerie Jarrett. And you can go to her Twitter account and figure out what's going on there. But Roseanne Barr also said today that she would get off Twitter. And you know what? Let's just call it what it is. Jessica, you and I were talking about this earlier. Her direct tweet was, and you brought it to my attention.
I did. If a Muslim person and an ape had a baby, it would be Valerie Jarrett. So obviously that's racist to the nth degree. It's something that you don't expect someone, you know, in the public eye like this to do. And it also really strikes at the heart of that argument that, you know, Roseanne was a Trump supporter because it was just about economic anxiety. That's blatant racism. She's had anti-Semitism on her Twitter account for a long time.
Yeah, so you connected this already to the president, which I understand is an argument on the left.
She was doing a very specific thing where she was saying the show was important because it showed, and I'm not denying that there are plenty of people who voted for this president because of economic anxiety, but Roseanne Barr is a racist.
Well, Noelle, I think right now, you know, just looking at it, we live in a politically correct world right now. We live in a world where it's just plain not nice. It's not nice to say
this. It's not about political correctness. It's racism.
Hold on a minute.
Well,
let her finish.
Let's just look at what this was and what she said. The tweet was not nice. It was ugly. It was demeaning. It was gross. And let's just leave it at that.
Why?
It was wrong.
Why leave it at that?
It's just mean-spirited. Can it not be mean-spirited? It's just
That's
horrible.
what racism is implicitly, but it's important to say racism. She's also posted pictures of herself before with a Hitler mustache, pulling gingerbread cookies.